A very good evening to you. I think this is, personally, having been asked to do this a couple of weeks ago, a particularly special thing. I don't think it's very often that a club in the Premier League would just entertain in a free forum 30-odd special supporters like this in front of the management and the board, which I think is terrific. First of all, I would like to introduce the panel. Commercial Director David Thomas. This man is Ralph Hasenhüttl, the first team manager. This is your new Chief Executive, Martin Semmens, and your Head of Football Operations, Ross Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, your panel for the day. And now I'll just ask Martin to introduce somebody else to you.
Yeah, good evening everybody. Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed your tour. We are lucky enough today to have a special guest with us. If you'd like to just come up for 1 second. This lady is Nellie Gow, the daughter of Mr. Gow. Nellie now lives here in the UK with us and works with us every day. She wanted to come and be part of this. English not quite yet at a full level to sit on the panel, but Nellie wanted to say a few words to you before we started, so welcome to Nellie.
Firstly, I want to say thank you very much for coming and thank you for your support as always. Having you as the 12th man on and off the pitch, that is significant importance and meaning to sense. With this tremendous for the of the management team, staff, and especially Ralph and the players, and also from you, everyone of here. So I think we will be having a great season and great future ahead together. And lastly, this morning I called my father, and he wants me to say thank you and regards to everyone. Thank you very much.
Okay, Nellie's English is a lot better than my Mandarin, that is for sure. Right, let me start on the subject of ownership then. We had a question on this from one of you, Robert Surridge, if you're in here tonight, Robert, good evening to you. And Robert's question was really about the commitment of Mr. Gow and Nellie and their commitment and how committed they are to the football club. So let's start with you, Martin, as you're now the number one head honcho at the club.
And incredibly close to you as well, which is unnerving me a bit.
It's scaring me. Right.
Okay, well thank you for the question. Again, thanks everybody for coming. I think it's probably worth saying up front that over the last couple of years of being here, we try our hardest to be transparent and tell everybody everything that's going on. And I think from now on we're going to try even harder and try and involve more people, and this is the first event of that. But we have nothing to hide, we want to tell you everything, we want to be as transparent as we can, so ask anything you want and we'll do our best to answer that question. So I think in terms of the commitment question, I will be semi-comical, if you don't mind me, and say I've never met a more committed human in my life than Mr. Gow. I'm not sure if any of you have had the chance to see him yet, hopefully you will, but he's unbelievably enthusiastic, unbelievably committed to life, to people, to our people and to Southampton. I think to give you an anecdotal story, I went to a meeting with him where we met with the council people from Southampton and we talked about development in the city. And I heard him say in that meeting, I love Southampton, I'm even thinking of retiring here. And even for me that was quite a shock, because I sort of got, okay, so this is a real long-term commitment. And I asked him in the corridor afterwards about that. And he said to me, I've been in China a long time and I've worked for the government, I have been in the military and I've developed many businesses. And now this is my focus and this is my life now. And he's not at the beginning of his working career, he's towards the end of it. So I think it's probably fair to say, Nellie, this is his last big commitment. And he sees it as a business, he sees it as a football club, he sees it as a town to be passionate. And Mr. Gow came here for the first time, again, I don't know if you know this or not, to buy a Sunseeker, I think maybe 15, 20 years ago? 10 years ago. 10 years ago, and fell in love with the city. So it was really the city that he loved first, and then the football club. So he's very passionate about it, very passionate about winning, very passionate about the long-term future of the club. and I talk to him regularly, and it's all about the future. It's not about today, it's about the future. So certainly from a commitment point of view, 100% committed, and again, I think it's just better to be transparent. There's a lot of owners in football that are here to make money. This is not what Mr. Gow's here to do. He's here to create an impact on the city and give the football club a good chance in the future.
Martin doesn't know this, but a few weeks ago I had a friend call me from Wembley when he was at the Championship playoff final, and he was with Mel Morris, the Derby owner, after the game, who happened, they talked about Southampton, and my friend rang me while I was on holiday and said, why has Mr. Gow never spoken publicly? I've just been with Mel Morris, he's met him, he's told me how much he loves the club and everything, and I was thinking, I don't know, why hasn't he said that publicly and everything? Because I think some fans would not know his feelings for the club. So I'm glad you said that, but do you almost wish maybe he had come out and said something earlier?
Yeah, I think so. Again, David and I, funnily enough, had a meeting today on our media plan for the rest of the year, and we talked about maybe having a bit more access to Mr. Gow and to Nelly, and a bit more communication. Again, to be transparent, it's very difficult. Mr. Gow speaks around 10 words of English. He learns a new one every day. It's difficult to communicate. And I think to begin with, there's a very respectful approach from Mr. Gow and his family to the management that run the club. So in reality, the people sitting in front of you and a couple of others, they actually run the club on a daily basis. The owner sets a strategy, sets a vision, sets where they want to go. But in reality, we are the ones making the decisions, and therefore they're very respectful and allow us to do that. But I think we do want to see a little bit more. And I gave Nelly the choice, do you want to come today or not? And she said, absolutely, I will change my schedule and come. So I think we'll see more. But I think, again, I'm open to debate about it, but I think the club has a view on what it's doing and what it wants to do, and whether it comes from me, from Ralph, from Nelly, it's the same message. But I can understand why people would want to see more from Mr. Gow. And probably the last thing I would say is I think it's fair to say that when someone buys a football club and they come from China, they don't know on day one exactly what they're going to do. It takes a bit of time. And I think only really in the last 3 or 4 months have we got to a point where we really know exactly where we're going and how we're going, and I think you'll see a bit more of that as the season goes on.
Yeah, well, I was surprised when we got one question from all of the fine supporters here about the boardroom. So I'm going to ask you one more thing.
Sure.
How much do you now, as chief executive, and I like the more linear nature of the management to board structure you've now got with these changes, the more direct involvement between the three of you particularly.
Yeah.
But how much do you get to decide what's spent, where it's spent? How much do you have to have approval? As the chief executive now, how much does Mr. Gow or how much does Nelly want to know what you're spending that money on? Or do they trust you to get on with it?
Sure. It's a difficult one to answer, everything, because if I say it's all me, then I get the same.
It's all right,
So I think it's probably fair to say that operationally we have total control. So where we spend money, what we do, where we invest it, is a decision made by these people sitting in front of you and a couple of others. What the ownership do is give you a view of where they want to go in the future and what we can operate within. So everybody in this room knows we're not a club flushed with money. That's not because the ownership don't want to spend it or we don't want to spend it. We just don't have it. We don't have Man City's money. So I think what's happened in the last 3 or 4 months is we've collectively got to a point where we've all got one plan. So a few of us, David and I mainly, worked on a new strategy for the club over the last 6 months. And then Nelly and her family got involved in the ins and outs of how we might achieve that with their backing. And again, being transparent, we had a very lengthy meeting a few weeks ago, and we finished that meeting with saying what we've accomplished is everyone's got the same plan. So Mr. Gow, Nelly, the board, Ralph, Ross, we all have the same plan. We know exactly what we're doing. So therefore, the answer to your question, I think, is we have total autonomy to make those decisions. But we do refer up and ask permission to make decisions, and that's not because one person's the owner and one person's the chief executive. It's good governance. So I ran my own business for a long time, and I wanted someone sitting above me to say, I'm about to do this. And in my business, we were about to spend 50 quid on a photocopier. Here we might spend 15 million pounds on something or invest in a new building. It's good to have the governance of a ownership board and the football club board, and that's why we have 2 boards. So yes, we have autonomy, I think.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Any other questions on the boardroom? So while you've been listening to that, anybody, or do you want me to move on?
We want to talk about football, but
1, go. Okay, so let's talk about pre-season. Mr. Hasenhüttl, how was Austria?
Very nice country. Although I haven't seen this part of my home country, I must say, but it was surprised how beautiful it was. We had a good weather. It was okay. It wasn't too warm. It was a little bit raining, but it was perfect for training hard. And the facilities with the 2 pitches there, and the way we could work there with the hotel and everything, it was fantastic. I think we enjoyed the time there a lot, and I think we had good sessions. With the final game was okay. The new player, Jadams, we are very happy about this signing, I must say. But I think it would be the next question. Only should speak about Austria in a moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a manager, you know, I think a lot of us, if we signed a player and they scored within a couple of minutes, even in a friendly, we'd be going,
yeah, we can speak about that.
And I think it's quite exciting.
Okay, then we do it. No, I think we saw in the first 2 weeks since Chelsea here that he's exactly the player we were waiting for. That was the reason why it maybe took so long, and we didn't want somebody else, because we were always speaking about that the package must be a perfect one for us. Financially, meant from the character, championship player, an English one who scored a lot of goals there, is young, he's focused, he's from his character, a very calm guy, but a very open-minded one, and likes to work hard with and without the ball. So, and that fits perfect to our game. That's what we knew from the first day on when we were interested in him, and then we are happy that we have him here now. That is clear, that's for sure. And I'm looking forward going with him this season. He's a robust guy. He works hard on the pitch, and I hope he stays fit. And I'm sure when he's fit that he will work with us, with this team, with this group, that he will be a better player next year at the same time, that's for sure.
Let me get through some of the questions. I've got a few for you, Ralph, from the good people here. We'll start with Steve Birmingham's question. For you, Ralph, which is, during your tenure at RB Leipzig, you successfully put together a team that blended young players with older, more experienced ones. Is that exactly, or is that your intention to do the same here? Young hunger mixed with experience?
I don't remember so many experienced players I had in Leipzig.
Okay, so it was an even better achievement.
So I think the mixture we have here is a much better one, because I'm with you. I want to push the young ones, but to bring them on a higher level, it's important to have also a few experienced with us, and they show the direction. But only then if they really are something you can look up. We have a few a little bit experienced guys, and they are very professional. When I take Meyer, for example, how he works and how he looks on his body, on his food, what he eats, we have here perfect facilities, but the old players show the younger ones how to act as a professional, and it's not enough to come up from the academy, make 2 games or 3 sessions with the first team, and then thinking I'm a professional for the rest of my life. No, that's not the way. The way is coming here every morning, knowing what to do, prepare for the season, recovery after the season, do everything to be a good football player, to work on my body, to get fitter every time, to work also on my mind, to understand the game we are playing in, because in our shape and in our net, it's necessary that we have every player there. And if a young player thinks he can play for his own and show that how good he is, then he will definitely not make the next step. And that what you can see so far since I'm here is a few players made it up to work with us, to train with us. But we're the same. The quicker they were up with me, the quicker they were down again, because they thought they are more, or they are further in their development, but they weren't. So it's important for them to be realistic and to be clear and to work hard, and then everything is possible. I'm looking on them, they can show me, but it's not a guarantee if you're 1 or 2 times with us that you stay here, so you have to show up every time, because it's not about old or young, it's about good or bad, and if you're not better than the old one, why should I let you play? So show me that you're better, and then you get a chance.
Talking of young players, keeping pushing, question from Peter Cutler. Has Michael Obafemi recovered from his hamstring?
I'm glad that he recovered well. I was very well informed about his work ethic in the break. It was good. Not perfect, but good. As everybody made his job in the break and came back in good shape, not in perfect shape, but in good shape. And Michael knows that it's an important time now for him in his career, because after 2 big injuries, if he doesn't understand what is it about for his body, he has a special body, what is about to live as a professional, to eat as a professional, to train and prepare and recovery after the training sessions. If he doesn't understand it after these 2 big injuries, that he has to change something, then I cannot help him anymore. And that's what he knows now, and we are very careful with him. We don't want to give him too many intense sessions after each other. We try to separate him sometimes a little bit. The guys with the big muscle injuries, we must pay attention extremely, and he has a very special body. He is unbelievably quick, and that means he's like a Formula 1 racing car, needs the best fuel, needs the best service, needs from everybody the best, then he can really help you. If he doesn't, or if we don't treat him like that, it's more in the garage than on the track, and I like him on the track because then he can help us. Yes, that's for sure.
And just a last quick question that came from Robert Horn: will the squad be fitter this season? Was fitness an issue last season?
I think we have to. You know, I don't want to speak about this topic too much, but everybody here in the room, because I've seen every game last year, knows how many points we lost in the overtime or in the last 15 minutes. And that's also a little bit about physical quality. This year, the overtime can be longer because of the VAR, so don't be surprised that we suddenly have 9 or 10 minutes maybe. The first time we see the 10 on the board, I think we will see it this year, so don't make too many appointments after the game. It can be a little bit longer. And then finally, we have to have the power to be concentrated. It's not only about the physical power, it's also about the mentally power to focus on our game plan until the last whistle comes. And this is what we try to imitate. Today we trained 2 hours, you know. It was a very long session. And finally, I hope we will be fitter. I'm sure we will. And it's not only about fitness, it's also about the good game plan, and we try to work on this.
Funnily enough, you mentioned VAR. Nobody had a question about VAR. I'll have a few for you before the season starts. Don't worry. We're going to have to work this out.
That's the crazy thing, because the VAR should stop a discussion about things that you will see. You will discuss more about decisions like before. I know this because I have the experience 1 year in Germany. It was a disaster the first time.
Oh, God. Oh, joy. The biggest question for me and you is, when they score, do I get excited and scream, and do you celebrate, or do we have to wait?
Have you ever seen me not celebrating?
Same. So we're going to go for it, and then we'll change our minds afterwards, yeah?
Maybe you have twice the chances. The first time and after the VAR again, you know? Yeah.
It's never as good the second time.
Oh, that's right.
I think we both have to go for it and then just go, not again.
Yeah.
Like this. Okay. Season expectations. I tell you what, because I'm fascinated by having you hardcore supporters here, just very quickly, we always talk about club expectations being very different to fan expectations. So if I said to you lot, and this is purely me off the top of my head, doing something off the cuff, Saints will finish between 9th and 14th. How many of you, please put your hands up, how many of you would that match your expectations? Right, so a good majority. quick. Koto. I didn't say 6th and 14th. So 9th and 14th. So that's a fairly sensible majority.
Why do you have to sign? Why do you have to sign?
Yeah.
For 9th.
I gave you 6 positions.
Okay.
You're all right. You've got some scope. Okay, we're not tying you to one. Okay, so look, here's a question. Everybody says, all the wise pundits, to go forward in the Premier League, to stay still in the Premier League, you have to spend money. Now, you didn't spend money in January and improve the team. Do you have to spend money in the Premier League to stay still?
In a special way, yes, I think. We don't want to do stupid things. We don't want to buy players for 40, 50 million or something like that, because it doesn't make any sense. That's not healthy for this club. I think we always should stay on this healthy path we are going now. It's kind of a, yeah, we have a different philosophy. I think we are a hard-working club. Like the people here in town or the people here surrounding the club, they are hard-working, and I think this is our philosophy and this is our image. And I think we can develop our game, we can develop our club with hard working, sometimes more than with signing for a short term a big player who doesn't really fit to our shape, doesn't really fit to our philosophy, doesn't really fit to the way we want to play, only to say, oh look, we can sign a big player. So many examples in football surrounding there have much more money than maybe we have, but are not successful. I think the best example last year was Fulham. I think they spent 100 million in summer to stay in the league. So you see, there are no guarantees, like I said in my first press conference. If you want to have one, you buy something. But I think the way we want to go in the moment with the philosophy of the academy to put the young players up is a possible way, but not a single track. We must do both. On the one side, look for fantasy players. They have the quality to help us in the future when we work with them. And on the other side, bringing the young guys to them to develop something big. And I think with the work we do every day, with the time we spend every day, and I can guarantee you everybody, or every one of my team spends a lot of time and a lot of thinking about how we can develop our game. And it was not risky for me in the winter to say we don't have to sign anybody. We'll give players away, make the group smaller, more committed, and you will see we will have a better half season. And we did it in an awesome way. We won against big teams like Tottenham at home. Nobody thought that we can do this. Me too.
And me.
I don't know it today how we did it to win against the Champions League finalists.
Free kick.
That free kick made the difference. So I think it is a special way, and it's a way we get connected to each other, because I think the people around the club, you as a supporter, you can feel how much we invest. And that gives us a connection that is more special than everything else. And that is something that gives us the energy to win games, the energy to stand up in the morning and to work for this club. And I think if we do it like this, then with this special connection, we can surprise the one or the other opponent. And it's not easy to play against us in the moment, and it will not be easy to play against us in the next season. That's what I can guarantee you.
That sounds good. Bernie Hand and Michael Powell, I think we've answered half your question about expectations, you two, with 9th to 14th. We should have got him to go with that, with the majority of you. But let me just switch around the panel a sec. David, how connected is commercial success with the league position? Does relegation threat alter many things off the pitch? And does a good start to the season give you momentum commercially as well? Or is it just being in the Premier League is what matters?
No, I think it's. I think everybody would support me in saying that, you know, when we have the seasons like we have for the last 2 seasons, it makes every single person's job more difficult. It makes my job more difficult to attract sponsorship. We sell fewer shirts in a retail store, but even operationally, on a match day, the atmosphere is is constrained, and that makes things just difficult for everybody, and that has an impact on the players. So it really does, that league position has an impact on everybody. Now, it's not to say that if we win football matches that makes everyone's job easy, not at all, because then actually what we're then doing is competing against every other club. So let's take sponsorship, for instance, as an area that I look after. We are competing against every other Premier League club for the brands that are out there, and to attract them to us. So it's hopefully that answers your question, really.
It does, David. And Ross, interesting, I think, for us, when you're running football operations, which part of that is, of course, finding players to bring to the football club or players to promote from within the football club, what difference does it make to you if, say, at the start of December the club are 9th or 10th compared to being 15th or 16th?
Yeah, clearly an absolutely huge and significant difference. My Scottish is my native tongue, so it's hopefully you can hear my English as well here. So it makes a huge difference, there's no doubt about that. But I think, to answer your question a bit more long-winded, I think the work that this club did for the last 25 or 30 years has established that everybody in Europe, everybody in Britain knows that this is a club that believes in young players and believes in young talent, and that message is loud and clear. I don't know if we always realise it, but I think Gareth Bale becoming a world record transfer at the time, I think the brand and name of Southampton at that moment went right through Europe, and everybody knew that this was where Gareth Bale started. When we speak to agents everywhere, they know that we're a club that's based in the development of young players for so long. And then the work we did in recent times, when we finished 8, 7, 6, 8 and played in the Europa League, I think that again took the club on a different level when you're talking about agents, clubs and players that may be attracted to come here in the future. And then when we made the decision to change coach, when did we make it? November or December? What are we supposed to say here? December.
November.
When we made the decision to change coach, it was absolutely top of my list when I spoke to Nelly and Mr. Gow and everybody else on the board, that in my view, it wasn't good enough for this club to just appoint a coach that kept us in the Premier League. We had to appoint a coach that absolutely matched our philosophy, someone who wanted to work with the young players, who wanted to make players better. Like Martin spoke about transparency. The squad that we had here there's no question, was absolutely underperforming and had done so for too long, in our view. And we needed a coach that could get the best out of the players we had, first and foremost, and then a coach that would give us confidence when we brought players here, in partnership with the coach, of course, that the coach could maximise those players and turn their potential into whatever it can be. And we felt we'd fell below the mark in that. We felt that we hadn't quite maximised some players' potential here. We hadn't maximised the quality of the group. So when we went to the market to try and find a coach, we were very, very clear, having tracked a certain Austrian for a long time, that he could do some of those things. And I must say he's able to do even more things as well. So I think that the big package for us is about the position that we are viewed in the market, the agents, how highly they consider us, the history of young players over 25 or 30 years, been on the European stage relatively recently, and a coach that's got a track record of making successful teams. I think all of that is really important for us, and the higher we are up the league, the easier it is.
Thank you, Ross. Anything from the floor? Not necessarily preset or sent to us. Anybody got any questions about this season? Sir at the back.
Going back to last season, so if we were thinking of a manager who fits the style of young players, why did we give Mark Hughes another contract?
Yeah, good question.
Right.
Do you want me to answer?
No,
I think I might end up answering this.
no, I think it's a fair question. It's absolutely clear that I think it's fairly clear to everybody that we've got a template of coach that we think matches to Southampton. I think there's been a bit of a track record there to varying degrees of success. When the club changed coach from Pellegrino to Mark Hughes, it was very, very late in the season. There was not a lot of coaches that were able to come in, recognise the Premier League, know the job that needed doing. So as a board, the decision was made to bring Mark in a short-term contract. And I think you're right, the decision to prolong that contract for a longer period of time certainly not one that's matched what we want to do. And when I was talking earlier about changing in November, December, we had to make amends for that, both internally and make sure we got that right, but for you guys as well, to have a coach in the sideline that absolutely matched what we believe this football club should be, and I think we've got that coach.
I thought the reason was because I wanted to make holiday somewhere.
Yeah.
Took too long in the holidays.
I don't know about holiday. I've not had a day off since you came. Not mind a holiday.
Good.
That's how it works.
Martin.
Yeah, I just think it might be worth trying to answer both those questions quickly from a club expectation point of view. So first of all, the Mark Hughes question, we recognise that we got things wrong. And there's Ralph's got something on the wall out there saying a mistake is only a mistake if you don't learn from it. So we've got to learn from it. And I think from a club expectation point of view, it's worth thinking about two things, right? One is you need a plan, and particularly in football, you need a plan. And I can tell you, working with a guy to my right, or second to my right anyway, he has a plan. I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of what that football plan is, but he has a very clear plan, communicates it very clearly, and our role is to provide that for him so we go forward. It's probably fair to say that the year before that wasn't quite there. So we've learned from that. And then I think from a general sort of club strategy point of view, I've been around the club for about 5 years. I was around when we finished 6th. I was around when we finished 17th. And we have to learn good and bad, right? And what we have learned, going from David's comments and everybody else's comments, that if we are not in that group in the middle of the Premier League, this is a difficult place to be. So the year that we nearly got relegated, God say that word, but we were all distracted by that. It's very hard to look forward. You're looking at today's problems all the time. So what we have to do is get ourselves in that group, whether you call it 7 to 12 or 9 to 14 or whatever it is. If we're in that group every year, then we have a chance to go up. We have a chance to win a cup. We have a chance to finish 5th or 6th one year when Ralph does his magic. But if you're in 17 every year, we can't plan. We can't invest. We can't buy young players. We're always fixing it. So now we have a clear view, which is we've got to be in that group, and then we'll see where we can go together. And in the short term, and then into the medium term, we have a manager who knows what he's doing on the pitch. But for us to say that we went into a period where we didn't have that sorted, I think that's just transparent and honest, because we didn't.
Thank you. And I think that answers probably Ruth Young's and Robert Surridge's questions about season expectations. I hope that keeps you happy. One more question I like, because I get really angry, and everyone, obviously these people don't listen to me on the radio because they're at every game. But me and Dave do get angry about clubs throwing cup competitions away, when I always think players and managers generally want to win things in life. It's a short career, and I understand the clubs need to survive in the Premier League. So, but it does frustrate me. How much, and Michael Powell asked, do you see cup competitions as something you will want to win? I guess everyone wants to win them, but what he's saying is, will they get any sort of priority?
I'm happy that you don't ask me about my cup history in my entire managing career.
That's not one of the reasons he got this job.
I did write. Don't
I'm
ask
waiting
Ralph.
for this 1 year where everything comes together. All the penalty shooting we've lost come to a positive end. No, you're right. I recognized how big the cup competitions, the standing of the cup competitions are in the mind of everybody in English football. I must say that I am also looking to a Wembley final, and every club must have this goal to come there. It's the shortest way to be in a big picture and to be in a big chance to win something. I can say that we are planning to work out and strategy to perform in both levels. On the one side in the cup competition, on the other side in the Premier League. And one thing is clear: the better you are in the position in the Premier League, the easier you can concentrate on the cup competition. So in the last season, it was not possible. Although I would like to win against Derby County, because I didn't like to have 3 weeks break without a game. So it's horrible. So the reason that the FA Cup blocks weekends for him for the cup competition is horrible for the other teams. They are not part of the cup anymore, and they cannot play in the Premier League either. So it's I don't understand this schedule, but I've learned that it's better to be part of the FA Cup, so not to lose or not to lose in the first round. And I'm thinking of we should be part of both cup competitions for a longer time than we were last season. And it's absolutely a target for me and for the team that we want to give you and ourselves a longer successful run in this part of the competition.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I work with Bournemouth as well, and I found it very frustrating when they chuck cups away when they've had good starts to the season and then not pushed on in the cups. When what else are you going to win? But interestingly for you two, particularly you and Ross, on the football side of things, the other thing is maybe 3-4 rounds in the League Cup, 3 rounds in the FA Cup. There are players you can give experience to and game time to. One, the ones who aren't getting in the first 11 who are senior players, and two, the younger players that you so desperately want to develop. So at some stage they have to have competitive football, don't they?
But we did it against Derby County. We had 2 chances to give them chance to play. So, and we did, I think, and the games were okay, but finally we had a big chance at home then to win this game, and we didn't, and it was not the best part, that's for sure.
Okay, let's get into the transfer stuff, and I'll start with you, Ross, because there have been some young players given new contracts this summer. So obviously that's a joint decision between you and the young players you've brought in or developed and the first team manager. So how happy are you with the business you've done at that development end from academy towards first team?
Yeah, I think when we announced the signing on the website of Romello Mitchell, who joined us from Birmingham a few weeks ago, I spoke about this. Matt Hale and I, who's outstanding for us in our academy, does an absolutely wonderful job along with his team. We made a decision around 4 years ago, probably just over 4 years ago, that we had to change the way we recruited our academy players. We do really, really well in the local area. We recruit really well from the age of 8 normally. When I say the local area, I'm talking probably from here in about an hour and a half, roughly 90 minutes from here. And we do that well, and that's always got to be the core and absolutely the heart of what we do for our academy. But we had to become much more open-minded to recruitment from outside of the area, from 16 up. So that means 2 things to us really. It means everything else in England, everything else nationally, and it means some specific scouting work that the guys are working on in different parts of Europe as well. So that's been a strategy that looks like it's working for us at the moment. We've got some interesting players, probably to back up what I've just said there. Jan Valery was the first player that we bought in that way. We paid €100,000 for him. I think he was certainly worth that. Hopefully worth a bit more than that in the future. He's been a huge success for us. Michael Obafemi was another one that we did that with. And then last year's Academy Player of the Year, Will Ferry's another example of that. Enzo Robis in the academy doing really well at the moment. So we've got a lot of young talents here, and Romello's the latest one we've just signed. I think we've announced some others already, Jordan, haven't we? And we've got some others in the pipeline as well. So that work's going really well. And then you probably read as well, we've restructured how we're working on the development of the players in the academy and the top end as well. Ralph's really keen that we make sure that we make sure the philosophy that's in place at first team level cascades into the academy. We don't have to go all the way down with our 8 and 9 year olds, but certainly at the top end, and we've made some changes there again to ensure that the players we invest in from 16 and 17 and 18, like Jan Valery, are absolutely prepared when they come onto the training pitch with Ralph and the first team coaching staff. And we've made some huge strides in that, and it's something that we're really happy about. We can see the fruits of that labour already with some players, and we're really confident there's a lot more of them in our pipeline now.
Traditionally, sorry, Mark.
Just quickly, just to say that when we made
this was your favourite subject.
It is, yeah, I was about to say that. When we made the change in our board structure, it was really one of the first decisions we made. Just think about the investment return on spending £300,000 on first team players and what we get for that in terms of salary and agents fees versus giving Ross an extra 300 to spend on 16-year-olds. The investment structure just makes sense to be doing that. And it makes sense for a club like us, it makes sense for everyone, but it makes sense for a club like us to continue to invest in that. And that will take time to come through, but we have to do it. Because if we don't do that, we won't be competitive in the future. So we're doing everything we can every time we're left with any spare money, which is not very often, to drop a little bit in that space. Because Jan Valery, €60,000 or whatever, £100, €100,000, such a great investment. We won't get them all right, but the hit rate there can be very good with our infrastructure.
I think that's an important point actually. we've not done that consistently over a period of time, and a lot of the biggest clubs in Europe do that every day. It's part of what they do. So what we've had to do there is we've had to put ourselves on the map, if you like, to be a club that goes and signs some of the best 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds, whatever they may be, who are not joining the first team. There's some huge elite talents around that can join the first team at that point as well. But we had to go head to head with some big clubs, and when we signed, for example, Alex Jankovic, you've maybe heard about, there was 3 Bundesliga clubs and 4 Premier League clubs after him, and 1 French club who spend a lot of money. And he chose to come and join Southampton. So that was a real feather in the club's cap, that we can begin to attract some of these talents as well. And we can invest in that every year. Matt Hale and I work in a plan. What we do is we don't overlap any of the players that's already here. And we look where the gaps might be, where we don't see a right back coming through, for example. Then we go and try and sign somebody like Jan Valery 4 years ago. And we try and do that with every acquisition we make at youth level, that they've got to fit the pipeline and the plan.
We're also investing very heavily in then looking after that player. So in the big staff meeting we had a few months ago, we talked a lot about, it's not about Ross finding that one player in Switzerland. It's about every individual in the club, right up to Ralph, looking after that guy from 16 to 21. The player care, the chefs, the people that drive them around. If you look after them perfectly, they will get to Jan Valery's level. If we don't, they won't. So it's not actually the purchase is only the first part of that decision. We've got 28 other people in that process.
How much does education come into it, Martin?
A huge part, but I think Ralph would tell you education of the person as much as education in English history or Austrian history. Education of the person is key. Everybody in this room knows, and Ralph's already alluded to it, that a player being given a big contract, whatever that contract is, £100 a week, £1,000 a week, is a lot of money. They can lose themselves very quickly. So having an environment, which you are in right now, and that building back just behind you, to make sure the players understand what they've got to do, for me, is the key.
So at the back.
Yeah, so hi guys, I just want to talk about the other end of the scale, because we spoke earlier about the funds that we do have available. We don't spend silly amounts of money on players, and I don't think really any of us want to see that. But we have spent some big sums on a few players.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, they haven't reached the heights that maybe as fans we would expect them to for the money we paid.
Yeah.
And I'm quite interested to know, from your point of view, without naming names of those few players we can all think of, is that because the managers we've had before Ralph were not the right managers for those players to progress them? And if not, why have those 3 or 4 players not done what we needed them to do for that money?
Yeah, I think, let me say one thing. Ross will answer that in detail, but refer back to what I said about having a plan. So it's possible that we have a very clear view of what the Southampton way is, right? And we said again in the staff meeting recently, we just went off it a few percent and we made a few mistakes.
And the previous chairman admitted that last year, you know, took your after ball.
Yeah, after the ball's, it's not like we weren't trying to buy the right players. But if you don't have a clear plan, you don't know exactly what you're doing, and on reflection, when I sit with Ralph now and we talk about where he wants to go, you realise that 18 months ago that conversation wasn't there. And at the time, you don't necessarily realise it's not there, but you answer the...
No, I think it's a great question. It's very valid as well, because there has been money spent on some players that haven't worked here. There's no doubt about that. I've tried to cover it a couple of times already, but we'll mention it again. So the first thing is, I think you're right. I think partly we may believe that some of those players would have thrived in a different environment at that moment in time. I think that's a given. Not all of them, but I think that's definitely the case for some of them, and maybe some of them still will. Who knows? I think one of the things that Ralph's done better than any of our coaches, in my opinion, since Ronald Koeman, is that every player that comes here has got an absolute clear plan of what they've got to do in terms of the disciplines and the standards and the plan that we operate off the pitch, and absolutely what we've got to do on the pitch. And he works on that every day. So I think when a new player comes to the club, the first thing that's got to happen is the coach has got to be really, really clear what that player's expected to do. And that would be the area where I think our eye came off the ball. That wasn't happening enough. Yeah. But that doesn't mean every player that we've signed is underperformed because our manager's not been good enough. I think we made some mistakes in the market as well. We've got a really strong scouting structure that's got a lot of things right. That the scouts have all been with us here between 5 and 11 years, I think. The guys that work in the first team with us all over Europe, and they've done a lot of good work for us, and we made a lot of good decisions. We made some bad ones as well. I think there's certain moments where we might have short-circuited our own process. There's obviously a clear example where the manager had worked with a player in the past and wanted them crazily, and we ended up doing it. Whether we should have backed that decision's another debate again. We could be here all night talking about
Was that to do with the classic pressure you talked about earlier of pressure of relegation?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think
that January buy we all know about in Argentina.
I think it could partly be that, Adam. But I think as a club, and again this might be the wrong thing to say, but I think as a club we maybe over-supported the manager at that moment in time, in terms of something that he really wanted for that player. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And then there might be other ones that we just got wrong.
And I would say to build on that, now we have a firm plan. Nelly and I and the ownership board have a list of 10 things that we now expect in a player that we buy, which I think all came from Ralph, to be honest.
10 commandments.
10 commandments, and we all believe in them, and we'll follow that through. And Ralph's got a very strong view on that, which he might touch on, and what we're trying to bring in, and we're clear. And I think 18 months ago we weren't, is the truth.
I think the point you made about expensive ones is important as well, and Ralph touched on it, that we've not put a ceiling on ourselves that we won't buy a player above 15 million. But so far the ones that we've bought above 15 million haven't done well enough here. So we've got, if we're going to spend that sort of money, me and him, I've got to be absolutely sure, one, that that's the right player, and two, that it's something that fits what Ralph wants to do. And that also might not have been the case in the past. That doesn't mean we'll never spend over 15 million again, but I think there's an absolute lesson that some of the majority of the players that we've signed that's been successful haven't cost us that amount of money.
Okay, let me go back to some of your questions. Oh, lady there first. I've got some written down you sent in, but let's start there.
If you, say, had an open checkbook, unlimited funds, who would you buy for how much?
Oh, there we go.
There
we go. Your fantasy football time now. I think, who's going to do this? All four of you, or just Ross and Ralph?
I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll tell you what I think Ralph will say.
Oh, okay.
I'm not 100% sure that Ralph would spend that money, because Ralph has a view, which he'll talk about himself, about how to look after the dressing room. And we've talked at great length about the kind of players he wants in that room. And I don't think if I gave him £30 million today, I think he wouldn't spend it on one player. That's
I can tell you who I would buy when I had so much money. I would buy Kylian Mbappé 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Such a player I would buy, and such a player wouldn't cost millions, maybe only 2 or 3.
So
but to find such a player like him, this must be our goal for the future, and that means that we have to keep our eyes extremely open. And if we have the money to buy such a young diamond, that's what I'm looking for. And then to develop this guy, and because he has something special, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I think too, great question again. I think that when you look back at some of the work we've done, we just talked about some of the work that we've done that's not quite worked, but when you go back, I think it was 3 summers ago, we spent 10 million on Nathan Redmond and 8 million on Pierre Højbjerg, who's now the captain, and I think that's the type of business that aligns to the club and aligns to Ralph as well. And when Ralph talks about fantasy players, what he means is players that can absolutely come here and do well for us today, but they can be even more in the future. Obviously, Virgil van Dijk's the greatest example of that. We bought him for Sadio's another one, that does that as well. But the guys that's in the build, Jan Bednarek at this moment in time in the building. So I think that's the philosophy, and we need to stick to that philosophy as much as we possibly can, and not allow anybody to take us off it as much as we possibly can.
Yeah. So we didn't get a fun fantasy answer, sir.
I was just going to say, so these players you're talking about haven't quite made great. Are we looking to sell them, or are we getting them to go out and run for it?
Yeah, no, I think again, Ralph's gone on record already. We're really, really open-minded this summer. The market's quiet, first and foremost. You can see that yourself probably. There's not a lot.
It's weird because it shuts so quickly. I'm surprised.
It's incredible. I was at a transfer event in London today with all the sporting directors from all over Europe, and it's crazy. It's hit a bit of a logjam in the market, but we're absolutely open-minded. We've got too many players in the squad right here, right now. Every Premier League squad has right here, right now. When the transfer window closes, we want to have less players in the building than we do today. And some of the players that will go out will be some of them that you just mentioned there, and there might be others in that group as well. But what we've got to do is when the window closes, the squad will certainly be stronger than it was when the window opened, Ralph.
And smaller.
Hopefully.
Considerably smaller, yeah.
Yeah, I had a long list in May. Robert Horn's question was to you, Martin. He said, would you like to see a cap on transfer fees? Personally, I'm more of a fan of the cap on Yeah, transfer fees rather than wages. Wages for me would be more of an interesting cap. Transfer fees, could you ever do anything about it?
No, I don't think so. So I'm a capitalist, so I believe in open markets, and I think actually transfer fees are really good for us, right? So
Yes.
if we can't sell players, then we can't really make the wheels go round. So, going back to the previous conversation, our ideal is to go and buy a player for 5 or 7 million, we develop him, we sell him for 25. That's our model. So we don't want to see a cap. I mean, whether football should have a cap or not, I don't particularly think so. The issue for us is wages. So I won't want to get too technical here, but the Premier League wage structure is so high now that creates problems for us as a business within the Premier League, but also outside the Premier League. So I think, as everybody knows, a player coming into the Premier League wants to have double, 3 times the wages they might have in Belgium or France, so we have to give them that to a certain degree. And then if they don't work out, they can't go back. So if we end up with a player who is 26 years old and we want to sell him, there's only a certain number of clubs he can go to. So the wage issue is a much bigger issue. Transfer fees, I don't think so. I think the market will eventually work itself out, as I think it is this summer, actually.
Okay, let me try and go on.
I think there's one other point there that's maybe interesting as well. When we sign players, I think we've always got to try and get them in a wage model that means if they do really well for us, we can give them another contract. Because if they come here and earn so much money on the first contract, it probably means we can't take the contract to a level that makes them sign a second one. And that was key for us in Virgil's case. He came in a really attractive contract, and then he did really well, and we ripped that contract up and gave him a new one. And I think in order to protect the assets for this club, we've got to be able to do that.
Yeah, sadly, I'm saying that.
Okay, I'm going to get through some quick fire questions because I've got a few of your ones to get through still. You can have one more go though, before I ban you. As long as it's a good one.
Talking about contracts, are really good performers last season, like Redmond and Moyes, are we offering them a new deal because they're going to attract interest and they continue to do?
Yeah, the answer is yes to both questions. We'd want to prolong their stays here for sure, and I think they're already attracting interest. I think their performances last year were excellent, significantly from Christmas onwards. Pierre's now captain, maybe one of the youngest captains in the Premier League, without thinking about it in great detail. So I think when you're doing so well, it'll clearly attract interest from elsewhere, but we certainly see the futures here.
Right, let me fire through a couple if you don't mind. First of all, from Jonathan, Ralph. So we're going to go quick fire now for 2 minutes. Does the club expect to sign any more players before the start of the season?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Anyone who think we practiced that? Right. Martin, is the money from Peter, says, he's not Peter's money, he hasn't.
I was going to say, yeah.
If he had
Send it on.
Okay, from Peter's question, is the money received from the sale of Gabbiadini available to Ralph during the current transfer window, which is more for me a question of reinvestment?
Yes. So
general.
Do you want a one-word answer or more than that?
I want a few about just how much of transfer fees you get in you reinvest.
So yes, so yes, it is available. Although I think we might have spent it, yeah. And
it's available, boss.
Yeah, but you already spent it.
Okay, yeah.
But we have a simple view, which is whatever we bring in, both from the club in terms of commercial money and football, we spend. Simple.
Okay, thank you. Anthony wanted to know: are you looking to buy another centre half, even though Wesley Hoot has come back to the club?
The one thing doesn't have to do anything with the other, so we are always looking for a centre back. But if you want to bring him here, he should be better than all we have, or give us the fantasy that he once will be better than all we have.
Yeah,
that's what we are looking for.
Okay, should have got De Ligt. He was a bargain at 67. And Young, you could have made him better. We are fast running out of time, everybody. We have a couple of minutes left. So, first of all...
Quick answers.
Well, yeah, we tried that a minute ago. It didn't work. Okay. Right. I do want to ask... you'll be really pleased, David, that I'm going to give you this question. Great. Daniel says, this year isn't the first time there's been a delay in the kit. Are we going to see out our Under Armour contract?
Good question. So there's a couple of things here. I think it is fair to say, we have had a couple of issues over the last couple of seasons with delivery of the kit and late delivery. To be fair to Under Armour, the issue that we have this year is nothing to do with them. It's a third party issue. I can't tell you any more detail around that because we're still in a situation where we're trying to resolve it right now. But to be fair to Under Armour, it isn't their mix-up, but they are working really hard to help resolve it. And actually, had a team member over in Baltimore with them yesterday. Just flown back in today, and couldn't be more complimentary to how Under Armour are trying to help us resolve the situation. So we'll tell you more information on that as soon as I can. To the second part of that question, which is, are we going to see out the contract? Reality is, so we have a 7-year partnership with Under Armour. We're just entering into the 4th year of that now. That's really good for us as a club to have a long-term partnership like that, because it means, A, that I can be focused on finding other sponsors and bringing in incremental revenue and not trying to replace one that's left. But also, actually, Under Armour are a really good partner. I'm not sure if you know, but we are now their main asset in football. So they were with Aston Villa, they were with Spurs. So in the Premier League, we are their only asset, and they're stripping out partnerships in other sports, but they're remaining with us. So that really shows how committed they are to us. And actually, their kit is brilliant, technically, and
I must agree. I have won all the others, but I think it's really good.
Yeah. So really, the two things are not connected. But are they a good partner for us? Yes. Are we with them for the rest of the contract? Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, David, for the honest answer. Martin, last season, Colin says, you said you were going to apply for planning consent for a pre-match fan zone. Has there been any progress?
You have to ask David that question.
Do you want me to take that one?
Otherwise known as Martin.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm delighted to tell you that a couple of weeks ago we had planning permission came through. So it's something that we've been working with the council on for over a year, actually. So it came through. We've got it. We are currently building the fan zone as we speak, off-site, and it will be in place for the Liverpool match. So that's going to be really exciting. It's going to be in the South car park. It's going to have live music, big screen, food and drink, places to sit. It's going to be a really big step forward for us. So there we go. I'm delighted to say.
That's good news. Martin, quickly, Northern End, ever going to be a complete Saints End? Or is the policing thing with the station and everything else impossible?
Again, that's really a question for David, but I'll tell you what he told me earlier on.
No, it was nice. Yeah.
I can answer the first part of that.
David, come on, Dan.
Yes, well, let him do it.
Okay, let me answer that quickly. So I think most of you, or some of you may be aware that we undertook a study with Saints Voice this season, who we asked to work with us to actually go out to fans and put that question to them about whether or not we should shift the away fans. Actually, that was a brilliant process, and Saints Voice came back and with a really good report for us, a really detailed report, and there was definitely appetite to move the away fans and to have the Northern End fully home fans. So where we are now is we're looking at were we to do that, and there's a big question of even if we are allowed to do it, but were we to do it, it's actually very expensive to undertake, but the key question really is actually whether the council and the police will allow us to do it. So we're in that situation now where we're still discussing with them. So depending on the answer to that, we will then have the question, well, do we want to do it, or is it actually better investing that money that we were investing there in an academy player, for instance, or elsewhere?
Thank you, David. And I'm not going to make you or Martin answer this question, but I love Anthony Curley's point, can the music be turned down a bit before kick-off? And actually, me, Dave Berrington, will both agree, because we can't hear ourselves even with our headphones on, and Ross as well, because he can't do his deals from pitch side when the music's so loud. So that's that done. Final, quick question. Away from the football, how are you finding the UK, asks Ken. Is it fish and chips on a Friday and a pint of beer for you?
To be honest, in the moment I like the most the weather here on the south coast. It's fantastic. I like this summer, not too hot, no rain, 24, 25 degrees during the day. Looking outside of my office is fantastic. Would like to be outside, but it's okay. And finally, It's a very beautiful place to be in the summer. In the winter, it's sometimes a little bit windy and a little bit rainy, but
Some people are never happy.
yeah, that's right.
You want it nice in the summer. You want
No, I must say, to come here in the summer is something special, and very happy to be here.
fish and chips.
Not my favorite, and
Beer?
And beer also not.
You don't drink, do you?
At the moment,
Well.
I lost a lot
Yeah.
of weight. That's
I know, and
why-
I'm still drinking.
So I think we should speak about that. Huh?
Yeah. I've lost some, and I'm drinking. That's the secret I need to teach you.
I made him. We bought the staff in Austria a beer on Saturday night, didn't we? One, and he had a beer for the first time in his hand, but he never drank one bit of it. You left it on the bar, didn't you?
Good.
No,
Well
it's
done.
not my favorite.
He's in the, well, you're looking very trim, Ralph, I've decided, this summer, so that Austrian air must be very good. Look, thank you very much for all of you for your, as I said when we started, commitment to the club, home and away. I hope you've thought that commitment has somehow been paid back a bit. Well, what I think has been a terrifically special, intimate evening for you to hear from the real key people at your club. So, to David Thomas, Commercial Director, to the first team manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl, to Chief Executive Martin Semmens, to also Head of Football Operations, Ross Wilson, and also to one of your owners, Nelly Gow. On behalf of all of them, thank you for coming tonight, and thank you to this panel and to Nelly for entertaining this evening for all of you as well.